Let's skip ahead here to Trump's tariffs and how they're reshaping the Bitcoin mining industries. As a result of the tariffs, China's top three Bitcoin mining rig manufacturers, Bitmain, Canaan, and MicroBT, are relocating production to the U.S. This, of course, allows them to sidestep Trump's tariffs on Chinese imports. And together, these three rig manufacturers produce over 90% of the global Bitcoin mining rigs. So obviously, this vindicates to some extent one aspect of Trump's tariffs policy, which is that manufacturing will shift to the U.S. Perhaps more importantly, I think, as you're saying, David, it's interesting to see how Bitcoin mining is becoming kind of a geopolitical chess piece.
Speaking of, meanwhile, an analyst is predicting Russia will emerge as the second biggest Bitcoin mining nation after the U.S. Pretty surprising news to me. I mean, I feel like China has really ceded ground in this over the past, 5-6 years. So GIS Mining CEO Vasily Gira, sounds Russian, says Russia is on track to become the world's second largest Bitcoin mining power within 3 years. It's a long time. Despite current energy restrictions, he sees rapid growth ahead thanks to new institutional entrants and pending crypto legislation, namely the forthcoming legislation of Bitcoin trading and the rise of self-powered mining facilities. Here we have a nation that is, a generous way of saying, is competing with the U.S., and now they are going to be competing on Bitcoin mining as well. Big moves. You also have, I would say, China in this mix as well. But they, again, like I said, have ceded so much ground between the U.S., Russia, and China. And then, as mentioned earlier, the Middle East is becoming much more serious about Bitcoin mining. Graham, we were in Abu Dhabi last year for Bitcoin MENA, and every local I talked to, they all said that they were serious about mining, and the government was serious about mining. So
it is fascinating that, just this whole idea that with the way energy is produced, the way you have energy resources, oil produced in certain regions, and these certain regions are being like sanctioned by the US, but what they're doing is they're just like taking that excess energy that they wouldn't otherwise be able to supply to, let's say, Europe or their enemy nations, and they're using that to mine Bitcoin. So Bitcoin mining seems to be becoming a political chess piece, a geopolitical chess piece.
There are a couple interesting points here, though, too, because number one, you have the government's relationship with mining. This has hurt China a lot, obviously. You have the cost of energy that benefits countries like Russia and the Middle East, but also America. We have a surplus of energy too. Then you have, as the first story mentioned, the hardware itself. And I think this is where like the Middle East is maybe hurt the most. It's got to be a bottleneck for the Middle East, is just getting these rigs in enough sufficient quantity to actually use. And the number of like leading manufacturers of this equipment is very small, right? And so even if you have a government that's accepting of Bitcoin mining and you have cheap resources, you still could be stymied by the fact that you don't have access to the machines.
And so that makes it especially interesting that the top three rig manufacturers are moving to the U.S. That potentially provides some leverage for the United States to prevent competing nations from getting their hands on these rigs.
Definitely. I wonder what the talk in China amongst the leadership is about this, or if they even care. Because if all these other nations are kind of taking this more seriously, I just wonder if the leadership is looking at where their position used to be, right? They used to be, in 2017, that's what everyone talked about, was Bitcoin mining was in China, basically. That was it. Yeah. And now they seem to have dropped to third, fourth. I don't know where they are.
Meanwhile, China is one of the biggest buyers of gold, which it's similar to Bitcoin in terms of its utility as a not the US dollar asset, right? And so you could argue that this is a pretty big own goal from China. They could have accumulated much more Bitcoin. Instead, they went the gold route, it seems.
Well, so there's another issue with this. I would say maybe the biggest difference between gold and Bitcoin. Well, okay, there are a couple, but one of the biggest differences between gold and Bitcoin is not physically limited like gold is. And the Chinese government is concerned about its citizens taking money out of their closed capital system.
Yeah.
And it's much harder for the wealthy Chinese to buy gold and then get it out of the country, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a physical giant thing. easy to track. But man, if you're a wealthy Chinese person, you could put hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin in your pocket and get it out of the country. And then, so I think that's probably one of the bigger reasons why China doesn't really like Bitcoin is they've been fighting pretty hard against this for a while.